Right. Well, welcome to yet another Kid Writes interview. I've been interviewing horror authors all month, and right now I have Mark Gunnels to talk about. I guess it counts more as a novella than a short story. The Make Halloween Scary or hashtag Make Halloween Scary again.
Yeah, I think it goes into the novella territory there.
So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark?
I'm a born and bred Southern boy. Live in South Carolina, have my whole life. I've been interested in horror since one of my earliest memories is watching the original Salem's Lot miniseries with my family when I was 5. So it's been part of my life as far as I can remember. And I've been writing since I was young, publishing since 2009, and just love writing horror stories and entertaining people.
And could you tell people a little bit about what this story is about?
Well, hashtag Make Halloween Scary again is sort of, let's call it my homage to the slasher genre that I grew up on in the 80s. It is a story about a small town that is besieged by a serial killer who is leaving messages saying that he wants to make Halloween scary again, and is threatening to pick a house on Halloween night that is not decorated for the season, and he will kill everyone in the house. So it's kind of about the town kind of freaking out over this, and the main character is a writer who is also suspected by the police of possibly being the serial killer.
So, what is it like trying to get into writing a slasher story? Because it is such a it's such a prevalent type of story in the horror genre. So, what was it that you were trying to really capture, and what was it you were really trying to avoid about that?
Well, because I did grow up in the 80s, I grew up in the age of Halloween and Friday the 13th, and I went to see them all. I wanted to capture that, the sense of fun they could almost have, just excitement and suspense, and also some of them a sense of mystery. Because some of them, like some people don't remember the original Friday the 13th is almost a mystery. You don't know who the killer is until the end. So I wanted to capture all that while avoiding just rehashing the same territory again. I mean, an homage is great, but you don't want to basically just be reheating up old material and calling it something new. So I wanted to put my own spin on it. I wanted to, I am a Southern boy, so I like to set things here in the South. I am an out gay man, so I like to use LGBT characters. And I wanted to do something a little different, a little unexpected, but still deliver sort of that nostalgic feeling for people who grew up with those movies.
All right. So there is a running theme throughout the story of a writer coming to terms with the fact that something they wrote just for fun inspired something horrible. Was that drawing on an experience or just something that you've just kind of mused on?
I wouldn't say from a direct experience, but growing up as a horror fan and a horror storyteller, I am used to the fact that there are certain people who think people who write in this genre should almost be ashamed of themselves and should take some sort of personal responsibility when for real life violence. It wasn't my direct intention when I started it to comment on that, but sometimes when you start writing something, themes and ideas sort of just arise in the writing. And I wanted to, so I did end up commenting on that a little bit, that this idea that, people want to blame horror fiction for real life violence. But my belief is, if you're unhinged enough that you're going to do something like that, it's not because of something you read. Something you read may influence the way it manifests, but it's something internal. So I didn't want to put any blame on the writer in the story, but I did think it was interesting having him have a little bit of guilt, and particularly having authority figures blame him and maybe suspect him just because of the kinds of things he writes.
And on a related note, there's something that is incredibly horrifying to any aspiring writers out there and any published authors out there, which is doing internet promo. So, can you talk a little bit about really tying the author's attempt to try and promote a story into a horror theme?
Yeah, I mean, promotion is, I'm sure there are people out there who just love it and are good at it, but for a lot of us, it's more terrifying than anything we could write in a story. And but it is nice. What actually originally gave me the idea for this story was I was using the hashtag One October. I was using the hashtag Make Halloween Scary Again. And I got the idea for this story. So it was kind of nice because then it almost had a built-in gimmick for online promotion where the title of the story is also the hashtag I'm using. So, and that way it was actually kind of neat and kind of just all tied together. And it didn't hurt that, it appears in a anthology with Robert McCammon and Kevin Lucia and Lisa Morton. So one, I'm not doing all of it by myself. I have 3 other authors who are helping to promote. But also, like I said, it sort of had that built-in sort of hashtag gimmick that helped out this time.
All right. So you mentioned Stephen King quite a bit in this, in throughout the story. What are some other influences of yours? Yeah, sorry, I can't talk.
It may seem unusual or maybe not, but I always say that probably my greatest influence as a storyteller is the original Twilight Zone. I grew up watching the original Serling show and also the 80s incarnation. And that at such an early age really sort of defined my idea of what horror is. The way that it can be sort of subtle and grounded in our world, but things are just a little off kilter. And also sometimes tying in some social commentary with the horror. So that really is probably one of my greatest influences. And I can look at a lot of my work and see that direct influence on it. But as I said, I was also very inspired by the movies I was watching at the time, which was a lot of 80s slasher films. Stephen King was a great influence on me because he taught me about character, about setting. He showed me that you can set horror in just small town life. It doesn't have to be a big city. It doesn't have to be some Gothic castle. I was also very inspired by Clive Barker, who his work was so bold and so original, and he really seemed to have no filter. And also as an aspiring horror writer who's also gay, I took a lot of inspiration and from him when he publicly came out. It made me feel there could possibly be a place for me at the table as well.
So there is a bit of a theme here, and it's also something you see in Stephen King's work about where the town itself is a bit of it's just as much of a killer as the slasher itself. And so I am wondering, as a gay horror writer, did your experience growing up in small town in the South influence some of your horror writing at all? Or is it just like, no, that was actually really great and that's a stupid question?
No, I mean, growing up gay in the South in the 80s was not easy. And it did sort of teach me that, for all the quaint, picturesque images of, small town life, some of which are very accurate, there is this dark underbelly. And if you are not what people think you should be, the community can turn on you quickly. And I was luckier than other people. I saw people who came out who were kicked out of their homes, who were disowned by their parents. I saw the really ugly side that religion can have, where it's weaponized against people. And that all definitely has influenced my horror. And I think it's one reason I did respond so well to some of King's work is that, and I think, some of the stuff from the past couple of years shows how quickly people can turn on each other, how quickly they can, go from being friendly and nice to each other to actually just being at each other's throats. So all that stuff does play into my heart, definitely played into this particular work too.
So I want to hear your theory on this, because there is a trope of using scarecrows in horror movies, and scarecrows in real life are really not scary. They're really goofy looking, but they're always terrifying in horror stories. So what's your theory on why the scarecrow works in horror stories?
I think, and I may be biased because when I was young, I also saw a TV movie called Dark Night of the Scarecrow, which really freaked me out. I mean, especially for a TV movie, I thought it was very scary. And yeah, it's just like, it's almost like with clowns. If I see a clown in real life, I find it more goofy than anything else. But in horror, it can be quite terrifying. The scarecrow, to me, it's because it's almost like it's an effigy. It's the humanoid shape, inanimate, but the idea of something inanimate becoming animate, coming to life. To me, it's almost a step up from the horror trope of the doll that comes to life. There is just something innately disturbing about that idea of something that looks like a person but isn't, but becomes animated and dangerous. So, because when I started writing it, I wasn't 100% sure what the killer was going to be wearing. I just knew it was going to be a costume, and I wanted it to be something sort of Halloween-y. And but when I got on the scarecrow, I thought, yeah, because again, yeah, in real life, not really scary, but if a goofy scarecrow pulled itself down off the pole and started walking toward me, it would seem a lot less goofy to me all of a sudden.
Yeah, very, very true. I feel like there's some sort of thematic connection between having a scarecrow, which is like quite literally it's there to put on a show and create fear, and then having the killer be somebody who's just trying to generate fear, who's just trying to put on a show to scare everybody, essentially. I mean, so is that one of those like happy accidents of writing, or was that ever something you sat down and thought about? Or is that something you're going to sit here and be like, yeah, no, I'm just that brilliant. You're welcome.
Most of my writing is a combination of just a bunch of coincidental things that click together in my head. And a lot of it develops in the writing. Like I start with a general premise and maybe a couple of characters, and then while I'm writing it, the story really develops. And that definitely happened here because I didn't have much of an idea when I started to write it. I was offered the chance to write a novella for this anthology for Hydro, which is the Random House digital imprint. So I didn't want to miss that opportunity. I had the title because I'd been using that as a hashtag. And I had this idea because the novella is actually set in the town in which I live, Greer, South Carolina. And I had been commenting that no one ever decorates anymore for Halloween. It's just, no one does it. And that's why I started the whole hashtag Make Halloween Scary Again thing on my Facebook. And so I got to thinking almost, I can't remember, I think it was called the Jazz Man Killer, the idea of New Orleans, the killer who said, if any household not playing jazz on this particular night, they're going to go and kill the people in that house. So I was riffing on that. And I mean, I love to write Halloween fiction, especially at this time of the year. So it all just sort of came together. And when I started writing it, because when I first had the idea, I didn't even know who the killer was yet. So it really came together when I sat down and actually started putting in the effort and the work.
All right, all right. So, what advice do you have to any aspiring writers out there?
My advice is always have fun. I feel like you can tell when a writer isn't having a good time, because if you're not enjoying it, I don't know how you can expect other people to enjoy it. That doesn't mean every day is just smooth sailing. You're going to have rough days, days where you struggle, but overall, have fun, write the stories that you're passionate about, not the stories you think that are going to be marketable or are going to sell, because you really have no control over that. You might spend time writing a story you have no passion for because you think it's going to sell. And then if it doesn't sell, you don't even have the satisfaction of having written a story you're passionate about. So just write the stories that you feel compelled to tell and just do the work. I mean, you have to sit down and you have to do the work. You can think about it, you can dream about it, but you have to put your butt in the seat at the keyboard and actually write.
All right. Well, now here's either the most fun or most terrifying part of the video. Here's where you get to plug everything you'd like to plug.
Oh, well, okay. Let's see. Most recently, I have, hold on, I'm going to dip down because I actually have it near me. My most recent book is Before He Wakes from Crystal Lake Publishing, which is a suspense thriller that I'm very proud of. Probably the most suspense-driven thing I've ever written, which was very fun to actually sit down and plan. And that came out earlier this year. And also earlier this year, I'm just looking through my books to see if I can show it, but I have a novel called 2B, which is a haunted apartment story, which I'm very proud of. It's an idea I had for probably 20 years before I finally got to writing it. And it was probably one of the most fun writing experiences I ever had. And I think it turned out almost better than I had hoped it would.
All right. All right. Anything else?
Well, I have an Amazon author page, Mark Allan Gunnels. I'm a little older. I've been doing this a while, so I have a lot of titles. And I'm a very big believer in short fiction. I love short fiction. It's my first love. So I would love it if people would check out some of my collections. The Daylight Will Not Save You, Flowers in a Dumpster, Bookhaven, Tales from the Midnight Shift, Curtain Call, things like that. And I'm a writer who loves feedback. So if you read something of mine, I'd love to hear, love it or hate it. I'd love to hear what you thought.
So do you have a specific type of horror that you prefer to write, or is it just any kind of horror?
I'm really kind of all over the place. I mean, I have a particular love for ghost stories for some reason. So I have a few of those. But, slashers, creature features, possession, vampires, zombies, werewolves. I love horror. So I like to actually do as many different types as possible. If there's a common thread, I tend to like the horror that builds. So not necessarily the horror that just throws you right into the middle of all the violence, but I like to establish character and setting, and then sort of ratchet up that tension as the story goes along. But as far as subject matter, the great thing about horror is there's so many different subgenres that you can work in horror your whole life and just constantly be doing new things. So I like to dip into as many different types of horror as possible.
Yeah, I feel horror is probably one of the more inventive genres out there. Like even for fantasy, there's a little bit even more grounded than horror in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that, I can finish one horror novel and start another, but they can be so drastically different from each other. It's kind of one of the most thrilling aspects of it for me.
All right. So novel was Before He Wakes, correct?
Yes.
All right. So Mark Gunnels' Before He Wakes is available now.
Yes. It's
Mhm.
out on.
Via Crystal Lake Publishing.
Yes.
My name has been Michael Kidd. It will still continue to be Michael Kidd. I don't know why I decided to use passive tense for that. I am so tired right now. I'm sorry.
It's all right. All right.
What's that?
You could change your name tomorrow. We don't know.
Maybe. The way these videos are going, shave the beard, change the name, move to Nebraska or something. I don't know why I decided Nebraska was remote enough, but I feel like it works. So yeah, my name is Michael Kidd. This is Kids Rights. Uh, I am currently releasing a Kindle Vella series. It's ongoing. Chapter 5 just released. It's cosmic horror. It is called The Divided. Feel free to check that out. And be sure to like and subscribe so that I can keep making this channel and hopefully interview more people in the future, because this has been a lot of fun. And Mark, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and happy Halloween.
You too.